Good afternoon. Welcome back to Global Media Network LLC, Passionate World Talk Radio. It is a wholly owned subsidiary of GMM LLC. Voices of the people, united we roar. Our motto is educate, enlighten, and entertain. Our third host, Betsy Wurzel, will not be able to make it today because the remnants of the hurricane has thrown 3 inches of rain in New Jersey where she lives, and her house leaks. So today it's Lisa Skinner and I, Lillian Cauldwell, on Lest We Forget Historical. Lisa and I will be talking about the new synthetic drugs that China has introduced to the world. And the reason why they're so dangerous is because they're cheap and because they come in pretty little packages that attract elementary and middle school students to go out, not realizing that there is a death danger here. So we will start off first with Lisa and hear what she has to say. And then you will hear what I, Lillian Cauldwell, have to say. And then we'll hold a discussion. So please join us.
Hi, everybody.
Lisa?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Really, if you are not aware of the fentanyl crisis looming in the world today, then you've probably been living on another planet, because we are definitely in crisis mode with this. And nationwide deaths related to black market fentanyl pills are definitely on the rise. And many of these victims, as it turns out, are people who get hooked on pain pills that are actually prescribed to them by their physicians. And then they get hooked, and they need, once the doctor stops writing prescriptions for the pain pills, they need to find other sources to continue feeding their habits. One of the things that I discovered is, for the first time ever, the United States may top 100,000 overdose deaths in a single 12-month period. And again, the big culprit is due to black market fentanyl. And what black market fentanyl is a powerful synthetic opioid. And it now contaminates most street drugs. And of course, the news has been tracking this. So let's share what we found out about the current status of this ongoing crisis. Now, NPR points to 2 big factors that has led to why this crisis is worsening. Number one, due to the pandemic, which put a lot of stress on millions of Americans who struggle with addiction. The pandemic complicated the ability of people in recovery to find treatment, and it left those people deeply vulnerable. And on top of that, we've seen this rapid spread of fentanyl, which is the synthetic opioid. And Mexican drug cartels now cook into almost every drug sold on the streets, including fake pain pills. And people are getting a hold of this. They're buying it on the streets. And it's like playing Russian roulette, because you don't know. When you roll the chamber on the gun, you don't know if the chamber that it lands on is the one with the bullet in it. And I'm using that as an analogy to, you don't know if what you've just picked up and purchased off the black market on this from the streets has been laced with the deadly substances that the black market is lacing fentanyl with. The other reason is due to overprescriptions. And we've talked about this before, is there's a period of time where painkillers, we know, were being grossly overprescribed. And I know that this was behind a reason why a lot of people became addicted. And now, because of pressure from the federal regulators, there are actually fewer prescriptions being written for painkillers. They've really come down on the physicians to stop overprescribing painkillers. But now the Mexican cartels are meeting people's needs with these fake pills. They look like OxyContin and other opioids, but they're fentanyl, which is way cheaper and unfortunately easier to overdose on. So this is a really tragic situation that's occurring in our daily lives. The DEA tells us that there's more and more and more of this fentanyl coming into this country. And they really don't know how to stop it, unfortunately. One expert said that they believe this wave of drug deaths could hit 160,000 families in a 12-year period. In a 12-year period, starting now, before this situation crests. Now, for months, the Biden administration has said drug overdose deaths are finally leveling off or even declining slightly. Unfortunately, that's not the case, because new data out of the New York City and other parts of the U.S. have undercut that hope. The numbers show dramatic increases in fatal drug deaths caused by fentanyl. So the latest numbers have been collected from 2022, actually are very grim. They show a 12% increase from the year before, with more than 3,000 people dying from drugs in that year, and that happens to be a new record. The old normal for New York City until about 2011 was 500 to 600 drug deaths a year, which, wasn't great. But now we've hit a number roughly 5 times higher than that. And what appears to be happening is fentanyl. It continues to displace other less deadly, less potent street drugs. And fentanyl is also being taken in really toxic cocktails in combination with other drugs. Data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention show that the overdose crisis is truly grim. Again, 111 deaths roughly every year. And the impact is really uneven. The latest preliminary data from the CDC shows some states like Oregon, Nevada, and Washington are seeing big spikes in drug deaths, up more than 20%, and even bigger than what we're seeing in New York City. Whereas other states seeing 10% increases above levels that were already pretty ugly are states like Arkansas, Indiana, Louisiana, and they are reporting significantly fewer drug deaths right now. But frankly, the experts haven't been able to explain these patterns, so we don't know why those big disparities are happening. So who's doing what to help control this. So in my research, I did find out that the Biden administration has ramped up efforts to target Mexican drug cartels that are supplying this fentanyl in our country. Today, the White House announced new sanctions against the Sinaloa cartel. Some cities are trying to disrupt street drug markets where fentanyl is being sold directly to people with addictions. This is in response to a lot of growing public concern. Every time we turn the television on and turn on the local or the national news, you're hearing of some other person dying of a fentanyl overdose. And most of them, from what we're being told, are accidental. And it turns out this is because these drugs are laced with other poisons, heroin or some other substance that they're being laced with. We're actually seeing more public use of drugs right now. It's more visible and more disruptive. This has sparked community backlash. That's not surprising at all. Most experts are skeptical that fentanyl trafficking can be slowed. It's a uniquely easy drug to make, and according to my information, easy to smuggle. So keeping it off the streets in places like Portland and Las Vegas and New York City, so far nobody's been able to figure out just how to do that. So on goes the crisis. The Biden administration has also recently rolled out a bunch of new policies to try to make addiction treatments more available to people. So he definitely is trying to figure out a way to get this under control. But as of this conversation, nothing has worked yet. They've made the naloxone available to buy over the counter. That actually was what was administered to those preschool children that recently died from being exposed to the fentanyl dust that was in the basement. They were able to revive 2 of them with the naloxone, but unfortunately, one of the children, the 1-year-old, did not recover and passed, who also got access to it. So you can see how lethal this really is. These kids were just exposed to like the dust and ingested it, and it was fatal for one, and the other 2 had to be revived with the naloxone. State and local governments are spending more and more money to try to make treatments available. The naloxone is that nasal spray that reverses opioid overdoses. However, it's got to be administered in a timely fashion, and people aren't always have access to it being done in time to save their lives. These efforts are running headlong into big problems like homelessness and social isolation, a more toxic street supply of drugs that's really hurting people. So it's no wonder that experts are saying that this is truly a public health crisis and not one that's going to be fixed anytime soon. Just a case in point, I turned on the world news last night, and the story was about San Francisco, which is where I'm from. I was born there. I grew up for a period of time in San Francisco. I moved to the suburbs, but as of yesterday, San Francisco has won an award. No, I'm just kidding. They have the largest homeless population in the entire country. That's not something to be proud of. And most of the people, 1 in 4, most of the people, it's because of their drug addiction and their mental illness that they cannot find treatment for ever since our mental health facilities in this state were shut down. So, our politicians are trying to figure out a way to resolve that, but it's out of control from what Governor Newsom has told us. So that's not something that we very proudly want to have recognition that we have the worst homeless population in the entire country. But it's the truth of the reality, and it's really, really, really sad. And the other problem that we're recognizing is our state borders with Mexico, and a lot of this fentanyl drug is being smuggled in from Mexico. So they have easy access to us, and we're seeing the results of that. I saw a clip on the fentanyl crisis a couple days ago when I was researching for our story here. And another thing that statistic that I learned, which is not something to be proud of, but the statistic was that it has now become the #1 killer in the age group in the United States of people between the ages of 18 and 49. Isn't that just unbelievable? The #1 killer.
Yes, but it does not surprise me with our culture these days coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, these numbers are
it agrees with me that people are fearful.
So many families are losing
And
their
when you are fearful, you try to protect yourself.
Yeah. And so many families are so tragically losing their teenagers and their loved ones due to this fentanyl crisis that is ongoing. And according to the information I researched, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So Lillian and I really wanted to bring this information to light, because those of us and that includes me, I had no idea it was as bad as it is until I started researching it. And I am blown away, because that's not part of my world. I'm not part of a drug world, and I don't really know anybody who is. And then, when we decided that this was the topic we wanted to present on the show today and started researching just the severity of what's going on, it was absolutely shocking to find out just how out of control the fentanyl crisis really is in our country. So we wanted to bring it to light for you, so you too would be aware of it. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Lillian, because I know she's done some research and has some very interesting information to share on this topic as well. So Lillian, it's all yours.
Thank you. The reason why I wanted to do this program with Lisa was because I learned about the problem on the investigative reports channel, the crime channel. And if they start putting it into investigative reports and documentaries, then we must really have a problem, because they had an incident where a 13-year-old girl, she was in junior high, or what they call middle school, and she and her friends were at a party, and they were given a bag full of these synthetic drugs that had pretty pictures, blue, green, purple, on them. And nobody said that they were dangerous. So instead of just taking one, you know how middle school students are, they grab with their whole hand.
Like
And
M&M.
because they're so small, like M&Ms, exactly, they did not stop at just one. Some of them had 4 or 5. Now, in the report, the person who was doing the reporting noticed that the drug agents were wearing plastic gloves when they were handling these packages. And the explanation given shocked me because it's so small that any contact with the drug can kill you. So imagine what 5 equivalents of M&Ms can do to a 13-year-old child.
And this is
Now,
exactly.
I have to admit, I raised a son by myself for 16 years back in the 70s. And the first day of middle school, he came home and said, I know where all the drugs are. I know where all the alcohol is, and I can buy them any. And that's their attitude. But luckily for me, his allowance wasn't large enough. But some of his friends were not so lucky. And some of them wound up dead, or more importantly, one of his friends became a dealer and was picked up on the streets of Washington, D.C. and booked, which sent his career into a tailspin. And he was only 13 when it happened. The point is, you cannot monitor your teen between the ages of 12 and 14 during the time they are at school. And middle school and high school students are now allowed to leave the campus to go to McDonald's or Burger King. And there's no way of you knowing or the teacher knowing that that's where they went. So Lisa and I, would like to make the suggestion that you talk to your children, 14 to 18, that this is not candy, that this is a dangerous substance, and it's not just made up of one drug. There's a combination of drugs that are all put together, compressed, and then you have this one M&M. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't go through the parents go through a lot of pain and sorrow, and they invest a lot of time in their children. You need to talk to them about this. This is on par with the electronic cigarettes that first came out. And all the kids ran and bought the cigarettes because they were flavored and they tasted good. But what they did not realize was they would still get addicted to it. So this is a real epidemic among our kids, but also an epidemic among our adults. Back in the early 20th century, people used to smoke opium. They didn't think opium was bad for you, and it helped them escape the normalcy of life when it got to be too much. And now, instead of smoking opium, we now have these synthetic drugs. So I would like for you, if you're a teen, to go and email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com and tell us why you need these little synthetic M&Ms. Because unfortunately, your life, like the fact of what you see in these video games and cartoons, you will not spring back to life. Lisa, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to really emphasize, because I've raised a couple of kids. Lillian's raised a boy. We know how difficult the teenage years are, trying to, figure out who you are and who your friends are. And as a parent, I know, because I used to get the rolling of the eyes from my teenagers, that I was the dumbest person on the planet when they reached a certain age. And we can't emphasize enough that we know that a lot of teenagers think they have it all figured out. But just like I use the analogy with Russian roulette or spinning the barrel on the revolver, playing chicken, I think is what we used to call it. And you pull the
Yeah,
trigger.
plain chicken.
If that bullet is in the barrel that landed in the chamber, that's the one thing that you are taking a huge risk, because you do not know if you're the one that drew the short straw and picked the fentanyl that was laced with the lethal, fatal drugs. It's like chance. It's luck of the draw. And that's why so many people are dying, because they think, oh no, that's not going to happen to me. I know where I got my fentanyl. You don't know where it came from. Even if you might have known the person that sold it to you, you don't know where it came from. And this is why this has become such a tragic, tragic, tragic situation. And most of these deaths are due to accidental overdoses, is because people mistakenly think that what they're taking is perfectly okay. And more and more of these drugs are being laced with a combination of different substances that are taking the lives of our loved ones. And before they realize that they did draw the short straw, it's too late. So I just really want to emphasize, parents, talk to your kids, let them know that they are taking their lives in their hands by not knowing where these drugs have come from. And they very, very easily and well could be the one that drew the short straw and picked the bag that was laced, and it's going to end their life. So, we don't want to see that. You guys are too precious to us. You're our future. So that's all I really wanted to say is be careful what you're doing. Don't think that you are safe, because you're not. And don't think you have it all figured out, because you don't. You'll discover that when you're my age and you look back and go, okay, when I was 15, 16 years old, what the heck was I thinking? This all comes later as we mature, and it could save your life. It really could save your life. And that's what's important. So I hope you heed what I'm saying here, because we don't want anything bad to happen to any of you. So keep that in mind. We love everybody and we want everybody to be safe. And we really want our youth to make it through to their adulthood and try to fix the problems that are happening in our world. We need you. So, anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you all very much for listening to Lisa Skinner and I, Lillian Cauldwell, talking about the manufacture and selling of synthetic drugs. You can listen to this program on youtube.com/PWR Network, _PW Talk Radio, Facebook.com/Passionate World Radio, LinkedIn.com/Lillian Cauldwell, and also on https://PassionateWorldTalkRadio.com. Got something to say? Have an opinion? Want a topic discussed? Email us, pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com. Visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/less-we-forget-historical. Make a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. We would love to hear from you. And in case you want to talk to the calmer host of the show, Lisa Skinner, you can reach her at...
What's the number, Lillian? 484.
You're going to give your email.
Oh,
Four. Yep.
You can
364.
You can reach me directly at dementiawhisperer1@gmail.com, and I would welcome a response from you, and I will respond back to you. So we look forward to hearing from anybody who has something to say on this, and we've got to stop it in its tracks.
4-364-1032. Very much for listening, and please come and join us next Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock with Lisa Skinner, Betsy Wurzel with a Z, and Lillian Cauldwell on Lest We Forget -Historical. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great